Welcome to the GTM Reset podcast. This is the audio edition of the Sales Exchange live show for CEOs and revenue leaders who already suspect that the standard business-to-business growth model is no longer fit for purpose. If your MarTech stack keeps growing, activity stays high, but revenue is still slow, costly, or unpredictable, this series is for you. Each episode explores what comes after traditional go-to-market thinking and what it means to replace fragmented activity with a new business operating system. This episode was originally broadcast as a live stream, so if Nigel refers to diagrams, frameworks, or on-screen illustrations, you can watch the full version using the link in the description. So let's get started.
So welcome to the show. I'm Nigel Main. I'm the founder of Sales Exchange, an architect of the Sales Exchange operating system, and kind of like architect to certain things that go wrong here at the moment. But never mind. Great that you joined me today. I'm going to kind of get straight into it because there's kind of different ways of approaching this. But this week, I'm not going to go heavy on the slides, although there will be some towards the end of the show. But let me start by saying that all this technology is great, not just this technology that we use to do streaming, but it's brilliant. I love it, and it's absolutely great. But the point is, it's got to not just infer there's an ROI, but it's got to prove that there is one. And so without that kind of the FAB, the feature attribute benefit, what it is, what it does, what it means to my business, to your business, the seller can take a walk. And that's the premise of these live shows. I mean, we've seen and monitored a problem and then built a solution to fit, which I'll touch on, I'll go through a bit later. But today's show is about saying, well, an understanding that your marketing department is probably telling you how great the product is. And for CEOs, this is music to their ears. Seeing their product in lights, great. Reading what the advert says, it looks so engaging and cool and intelligent. But you've got to beware. It's supposed to. You're supposed to think it's great. It's your product. I mean, it's your company. You're the one who keeps paying the bills. And maintaining that marketing budget. And really, I mean, that's why I would say that's kind of marketing and SaaS budgets are typically always out of control with most businesses. Yet you're still not selling. So why is that? So we see it as that the problem is, and it's I suppose it's not the nicest way of presenting it, but nobody cares. Nobody cares about your product. They don't care about your service, how cool the marketing is, what it looks like. CEOs like you and I and buyers only care about themselves, and rightly so, because you've got that acronym WIFM, yeah, WIIFM. What's in it for me? And if there is a genuine benefit, then they might be interested in having a look, but definitely not up for buying anything. So you've got to kind of think, well, how many times have you heard marketing say, well, we just need this add-on. Got to make sure we get your message out there. And then when the quarterly sales kickoff comes round, all the salespeople are sitting there under a cloud. Because marketing have been giving it the big one, telling everyone, hey, look, we did a great job last quarter. But these salespeople here, I mean, they're the ones that let everyone down. And in a way, it's like the salespeople are none the wiser. And that's how I see it. Just none the wiser. I've got that in there. They're none the wiser because they don't know what the processes are. And so they end up just having to agree with everyone else. I mean, the CEOs, CFOs are being kind of cajoled or coerced into thinking the same way in a way. And so the salespeople think, well, it must be us. And they end up leaving that meeting, leaving that sales kickoff, feeling like crap. But the actual reality, is no one's joining up the dots. Why should they? I mean, at the end of the day, MarTech have gotten away with this for a couple of decades, so they're not going to own up to anything. And that's the kind of problem that we got here. And so you look at the attention process that we all adhere to. You know, first it's a split second look, then it's a few seconds, then it's a bit longer, which then turns into minutes, to downloads, to meetings, and hopefully to a sale. So it's never, ever, ever been any different for decades. But listening to marketing, they're telling you to keep on keeping on. But what exactly are you keeping on? I mean, I could say this fairly accurately, that virtually every B2B marketer has either been taught formally up to degree level or sim qualification level, trained in-house, or they've picked it up as they went along. And every one of them for the past 20 years has been executing consumer marketing strategies and tactics and using the software designed for consumers, for consumer businesses. And B2B CEOs have never been any the wiser. And that's why your approach is identical to your competition. Everyone uses the same software, the same approach. But B2Bs get worse results than B2Cs because we as B2Bs haven't followed through as the consumer industry has. So keeping on, it's got a very different connotation. And it's kind of more along the lines of, you keep doing what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. Hang on. So as we know in the consumer world, if you see something, you see it, you like it, you buy it and repeat. But in business, B2Bs, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's irrelevant. It's probably going to sit on a server anyway. So you won't be looking at it for a start. So there is no see, like, buy along the lines of, but I would say it's along the lines of, our problem is getting out of hand and we better do something about it. So everything about business buying is different. Yet most B2B marketers think buyers behave, I don't know, like they're buying trainers. You know, looking at branding, looking at brand relevance. It's identical to B2C, like I said before. And the marketers are gatekeeping or gating content simply to harvest email addresses. So your prospects get presented with a form and a demand, almost like a payment, for their contact details. And that's before they can even read what you're offering, let alone, I don't know, have a conversation. And this is what initially, if you know how it came about, how it prompted the design and build of marketing automation platforms to collate email addresses by distributing free PDFs so you could build email lists. And we all know now, especially B2Bs, written content is actually more of a ruse to get people to fill out the forms so the BDRs can bring them up to get a discovery appointment. The trouble is, most marketing people don't know the questions salespeople actually ask to align the product to the pain. And so, you know, the promotional content is, I don't know, it's either vague or it's AI written now, or it's just thin. Or even it's non-existent, you just don't even do that and just rely on BDRs and SDRs to do the cold calling. So there's a problem. Been a problem for a long time. And I would say pretty much all along, most B2B companies think they have a pipeline problem, which would seem to make sense, but they don't. They've got a visibility problem. So for nearly, 20 years, B2B sales have been built on a very simple idea. Capture the lead, score the lead, chase the lead. And if we're honest, virtually every CEO knows it's not working. I mean, if it ever did in the first place, I mean, come on. Because the buyer's never changed. We, or they, whatever, don't fill out online forms. They don't want to speak to salespeople. They don't want to be tracked or chased or qualified. We CEOs want to stay anonymous. We want to self-educate, and we'll only engage when we're ready. And that's what you do. That's what I do all the time. So here's the problem. If the buyer stays anonymous, how do you know what's actually happening in your market? So over the past few months, we've been running a live model, not a theory model, but a live model, where we broadcast content at scale, make everything open access. So no forms, no gating or anything like that, no friction, zero. And then we've been observing what happens. And here's the interesting thing. We're seeing the same people come back hours later and downloading different assets, different documents. So we can see that they're learning at their own pace without ever identifying themselves, which means for us and potentially for you, but for the first time in a B2B environment, we can start to see decisions forming before they become leads. So if you think about the kind of the typical CRM, marketing automation, lead scoring and so on, they only show activity after someone has been identified, typically by mapping out their IP address and their email. So we're looking at what happens before that lead scoring moment, and that changes everything. Because instead of asking who should be cool, you can start asking, well, what's the market actually doing? And when you can see that, don't need to chase anyone. You just observe it, just look at it, watch it happen, understand it, and then you can align to it. So we're now able to, we can break this down now to understand what's happening in B2B buying behaviour. And we can see, obviously we can see now what's stopping other systems from seeing the same thing. And so it's also like how a broadcast-driven model starts to reveal the behaviour in a way that is kind of it's measurable and scalable and genuinely commercially useful. So it's changing. Huh? So most B2Bs, and we did it as well in the first place, most B2B companies think that revenue is something that you react to. It comes in, you look back, try and explain what happened. But that's because the entire system is built on, the best way to call it is like lagging indicators. So pipeline, leads, conversions, all of it tells you what's already happened, not what's about to happen. And what we've been looking at really is something different, very different. So you kind of, when you move to this broadcast selling model, making all your content open access and monitor everything, and I mean everything. So that's every social media post and the associated impressions, reactions, comments, PDF downloads from those posts, website visits, live shows. And from going to the live shows, you've got videos, clips, shorts, podcasts, and any downloads and visits that come from that content, because they're separate to the first lot. So then you actually start to see the behaviour long time before any revenue appears. I'll show you in a minute how we set it up, but that's, I suppose this is where it gets really interesting, because instead of seeing isolated clicks or downloads, you start to see patterns. People watching, people coming back hours later. Engage, kind of consuming, if you want, the best way to put it is consuming multiple assets, spending more time, engaging across different formats as well, but still not identifying themselves. Don't have to fill out forms, but we can see they are clearly learning and evaluating. And what that creates for the first time in a B2B environment is a visible layer of activity that sits months ahead of revenue. So you might see an increase in watch time and downloads in, say, I don't know, month 1 or 2 or whatever, and a kind of deeper engagement a bit later, and repeat behaviour a month 3 or 4, whatever. And then only then does the business start to flow in. No, it could be month 4, 5, 6, 7, doesn't matter. So the relationship changes. Activity doesn't follow revenue. Revenue follows the activity, but with a lag. And once you can see that lag consistently, you're not guessing anymore. You're observing demand. And you're observing that demand forming in your market in real time. And you don't need to know who the buyer is. And that's the shift. So instead of asking how many leads do we generate this month, you're asking, what's the market doing? And what will that turn into in 3 to 6 months' time? And you can answer that. It's really special. I mean, and so you move from reactive reporting into something that's, I don't know, much more powerful, which is the ability to anticipate revenue before it arrives. So we're not there to chase demand anymore, which is what was going on. We have to be there to create visibility, to observe this behaviour and align to what the market is already doing. And when you do that consistently over time, what you end up with is something B2B has never ever had before, which is a way of forecasting revenue based upon real, observable behaviour and not assumptions. I mean, it's a big shift. And so, I mean, I just kind of want to pause here for a second, just to a moment, because I want to say that it's quite easy to think I'm talking about AI or some kind of new SaaS product or something like that, but I'm not. We've built a new B2B operating system to replace, and the only way to describe it is to democratize existing sales and marketing operations. And so for the technical people out there, I just want to kind of touch on it. It's a Python script, orchestration-driven foundation with an AI operational layer. And it's 95% local and web server based. The AI bit's kind of for admin and so on. And the server bit speaks into what a lot of businesses are looking to do at the moment, excuse me, which is to repatriate software so you're not paying out for more SaaS. So you own these platforms. But here's the kind of the important thing. When people do think about AI, they think it's simply going to improve sales, yeah, and improve that whole sales and marketing stack. Like, I don't know, better emails, better automation, better CRM, even better dashboards. I mean, they could do, but that's not what's happening at all. The architecture of B2B itself is being changed. And this is where it gets kind of really, for us, I mean, massively interesting. You know Andreessen Horowitz, A16Z. They're like a tier 1 top end. My button stopped. They're a top VC over in the States, and they're openly talking about it, about this operational layer. So they're saying that that they see that this is the beginning of kind of the collapse of traditional CRM structures. And so you've got this kind of emergence of orchestration layers and multimodal, or should I say, like multiple systems of record. So the AI native workflows. And I mean, the most important thing here is conversational operating environments. And what struck me was that it wasn't the AI hype bit. It was the fact that while they were publicly talking about this on their podcasts and so on, we'd already spent years building out this operational infrastructure ourselves. But not because we were chasing AI or anything like that, but because we were starting from a very different question or standpoint. We started with the buyer. So that's a critical point. So I mentioned last week that the genuine currency in B2B is the appointment. No appointment, no sale. You cannot sell anything if you're not talking to a prospect. So you've got to have the appointment. But to get there, how do B2B buyers actually buy? And once you ask that honestly, how do they buy? And you start to realise, well, actually, you've got a problem here because B2Bs, I've got to stop here a second because I was telling you about these buttons. Sometimes they work, sometimes these are Stream Decks, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. So the thing is, you've got to understand how buyers buy, and what is that lead up? Every salesperson in the world knows what the lead up to the appointment is. You just got to wait until they're ready. And the problem is that we want to self-serve, self-educate, and remain anonymous because that's how we do it. And so, these systems are just kind of watching and just looking to I don't know why it's happening. It's just going backwards and forwards, and it doesn't want to work. It does work now. Anyway, and the reason the reason I use these prompter things is because it's very easy to go off down a tangent. It's very easy to not make the point that you want to make, and you don't want to ramble. That's critical. You don't want to ramble, and so it's important that it's all about using the right technologies and so on. But the bottom line is any CEO, me, you, whoever, we will avoid forms. And in our own time, quick drink. In our own time, we will shortlist a vendor long before we speak to anyone in sales. Because that's how it is. Everybody knows that's how it is. But still, most businesses are still operating an infrastructure, and everybody, you know it, around marketing qualified leads, funnels, SDR, BDR activity, that kind of thing. And of course, the attribution models, but which is there for the benefit of marketing and no one else. You've got campaign automation, CRM, and so on. And the result is kind of an enormous operational complexity with, and you could say, surprisingly consistent poor outcome. Because we know it doesn't work. So the past few years, what we've been doing is building what's, I suppose it's now been described as B2B operating systems. So it's not a sales tool. It's not an AI wrapper or anything like that. And it's certainly not an outbound marketing automation platform. But it's an operational infrastructure layer for B2B commercial operations. So this operating system is something that it's kind of something that you need to get your head around, because I was saying earlier about, everybody uses the same systems. Every B2B uses a B2C related technology, SaaS and services related products to drive marketing. But it doesn't work. We all know it doesn't work. Because if you look at the scale, or rather the numbers of businesses that have gone bust or go bust every year, the statistics that relate to them has never changed. So, like I said before, do what you've always done, get what you've always got. And that's what's been happening for the past 20 years, especially since marketing automation came out. And so you've got to look at these continuous systems that can provide this continuous exposure. And if that's the case, what it enables you to do is to maintain this exposure for social media and banner. Having something that provides you with repetition, the repetition that is required. That's critical. None of these one-offs. And so so we've put this mechanism in place, and it fits into certain modules. So you have a look at this. These are the different modules. So you've got the course, we'll come on to that in a second, but you've got these different modules that provide these different elements. That's what makes up B2B, a B2B infrastructure to generate sales. I'll come back to this in a second. And so the exposure is exposure via social media, email, and banners, which drives traffic to streaming, live streaming, like this, like you see on YouTube, like you'll see anywhere else, whether you've got people sitting and talking to each other, or you've got solo people presenting like this, however you want to do it. Or it can be across nationwide or across continents and have people stream on one show. But that streaming is there to build the trust, because you want people to get to know, like, and trust you. And then you've got the next phase of it is an AI-assisted sales process orchestration, which basically includes, I suppose, AI visibility from the first appointment discovery to the research, to quote, to the slide deck, to comparison, culminating in total revenue visibility on your pipeline. Then we've got cradle to grave telemetry. So we're not just talking about Google Analytics. We're talking about everything I mentioned before. So measuring everything from that first impression that you've put out on social media to a download, to referencing the final quoted figure on the proposal documentation. So it's referenced, it's measured and trackable, delivering a level of analytics, or it should really say telemetry, never seen, never experienced before in B2B sales. But it doesn't actually stop there, because we have something what's called operational memory, which is a big deal when it comes to AI. So you're not constantly prompting and asking it to do something. You're pointing AI to your content, to your data, or whatever you want it to know and assist your business with. So it means you can have multiple large language models. I mean, we use both ChatGPT and Claude for different things. I mean, for example, Claude's got certain different native connectors to that which GPT doesn't have, basically. So this enables this, we call, like, centralized knowledge and centralized knowledge access, you could say, for the entire teams, everyone, giving you this multimodal kind of context analysis. You can blend any data that you want. But more importantly, you can begin to see what external factors are affecting your market. So, you see tracking on Forex or trading platforms, and you see different clips that the economy has affected share prices and so on. You see them going up and down. You see the same behaviour for your total addressable market, just your total addressable market, because they're the ones you're messaging, they're the ones you're speaking to. So no one else, don't need to bother about anybody else's. And finally, really, because of ChatGPT's new real-time voice that they've just launched, we've got this, and I'll say this kind of slowly, we've got conversational interrogation of the entire business itself. So you ask ChatGPT a question about the business because it's visible and connected. And this is where things get really interesting, because I think that we're kind of moving towards a business world where the infrastructure of the businesses themselves become queryable. If you think about that for a second. Say, for example, just for example, hypothetically, an investor asks a difficult question in a meeting, like, I've got no, I've got these written down. So what happens? What's happening with pipeline velocity? What's the CAC by acquisition source? What's the relationship between engagement and conversion? What operational bottlenecks are there affecting onboarding? Or what's the annual recurring revenue full-time equivalent efficiency by department? Firstly, everyone's eyes are going to glaze over, and that bead of sweat would just appear above the GTM team's eyebrows, the brows. And someone would say, I'll have to get back to you on that. They'd be frantically checking a dashboard, trying to speak to finance and speak to RevOps and build out some report and come back 3 days later. But what happens when the organisation itself becomes conversationally interrogatable? It's where the telemetry and financial modelling and operational workflows, documentation, all that sales intelligence and the content systems and all that organisational memory I mentioned are all connected together through an AI layer. So what happens is, at that point in the meeting, when a question gets asked, the founder doesn't need to pretend to know everything. Just says, I don't know, ask the system. I mean, I know it does sound a bit kind of go back to 2001 and HAL or any kind of sci-fi, but it's not fantasy. The technology stack exists, is there. Real-time voice, orchestration frameworks, BigQuery, multimodal AI, and conversational interfaces. All these pieces are here. They're functional. But just most businesses haven't assembled them yet. Just haven't put them together. And this is the real kind of key point to any B2B CEO or investor making a difference. I think the next generation of B2B companies, they won't operate like traditional sales and marketing departments. I see them operating more like media companies with telemetry systems, with orchestration layers and AI native operational environments. And that's definitely the shift that we're heading to. And whether we're right or wrong commercially over time, I don't think the direction of, you could say, travel is going to be reversible. Not anymore anyway. And I think this is this is one of the most important things businesses and investors need to understand about AI and the kind of the operational infrastructure is that a large percentage of operational jobs exist because existing systems are disconnected. Workflows are fragmented. Organizational communication is inefficient. So in effect, people became the connectors. They were the connectors between the systems that never properly communicated with each other. So over time, businesses accumulated layers of coordination because departments became siloed. And we all know that. And reporting was manual, and that knowledge became trapped. And these workflows that kind of needed this human intervention all the time. At the end of the day, CRM systems just became an administrative overhead instead of operational intelligence. So because of all of that, companies hired coordinators, SDR managers, the RevOps, workflow admin, and reporting teams and internal communication layers simply to keep the organisation aligned. So you could say, in effect, humans became the middleware between these disconnected systems. And that is exactly what directly impacts annual recurring revenue full-time equivalent performance, because ARR FTE isn't just a sales metric. It reflects operational architecture efficiency, workflow efficiency, coordination overhead, and a system integration maturity and organisational friction. So most businesses are running at like an average of 80 to 90 grand per person per annum. ARR, FTE. Yeah, it goes up when you've got more staff, but also when it's bigger, so's the debt. And this is where the real kind of AI conversation, this is, I suppose, why the real AI conversation isn't, it's not about reducing headcount. It's about native orchestration, reducing organisational friction, because the goal isn't about replacing humans with bots. The goal is removing that unnecessary coordination layer and reducing duplicated effort and collapsing kind of ops or operational latency, improving visibility and increasing execution across the whole of the business. And that's how foundational operating systems structurally improves annual recurring revenue, the full-time equivalent. And this is why the idea of having a queryable business becomes so important, because once the telemetry, the workflows of documentation and all that orchestration becomes interconnected conversationally, the organisation just requires just fewer people, simply because the machine aligned it all. And all of that, as we know, getting to that point, that becomes a board level conversation about future kind of operations and architecture of the business itself. So, we look at what we've got here, and I think that I need to stop this a second, because there's a delay. There's a bit of a delay and a lag, so you can see it spinning anyway. But we've got to look at systems that will replace B2B marketing. And the important element or point of these shows, and the content that we put out, is to demonstrate what we advocate, which is to communicate what we passionately believe in and to explain the background, I suppose, of the outworking of that. So, I said that everything, I suppose everything that I said states that we as buyers work and function as we always have. I mean, we don't, we're never going to chase anybody out. We're never going to cold call anyone, because I don't need or want anybody doing that to me. It's as simple as that. If I think it makes sense, I'll do whatever is necessary in my time, not anybody else's. But the point really here is to explain what this is about, what this whole process is about in terms of. See, it doesn't want to stop. Looks like I've got a techie problem here. Probably just another turn it off, close the windows down and reboot it. But the bottom line is that we've built a platform, we've built a system. And the point of the system is to deliver what businesses need. If you've been around, if you've been doing it for any length of time, you know that you're going to have to bear with me on this, because when you think you've got everything working and it seems like everything's working, and you think you've got everything sussed, and you're hoping that it's all going to work, and it does. We have a system. The system has been constructed in a way that is meaningful to the end result of the business. You're in business to generate revenue. You're not a social service. And because of that, everything has to be driven or be culminating in revenue. And so we have a, if I turn this off, you can see that there's a delay, and I don't know why there's a delay. I just have to bear with me on it. It'll come good in the end. So we have a structure, and those three things, those 5 things that we have, with the course at the top and the other 5, they all interconnect. And it starts off with what we call SX Reach, and Reach is the methodology and infrastructure that communicates to your total addressable market, enabling them to stay anonymous. And so that's social media output and banner adverts that are pushed out. It does include email, and so therefore you do know who they are. But the point is that you're able to maintain a level of visibility, consistent visibility, that you never had before, because every single thing is tracked back to your telemetry, within the telemetry, so you can analyze everything. As you may well have seen with our information that we put out, we promote a live show every week. So we have people who understand who we are, what we do, and that they can get to know, like, and trust, we hope, know, like, and trust, every week, because we're live every week. The information is then used, and you could say we exploit that, because from every live show, we convert it to a podcast, to videos, a full video, to clips, to shorts. And our overall exposure is we get about 30,000 views, visible to 30,000 people a month. So from that, once that live show, once that information goes out, the live show happens, here we are. And we can say there's a link in the description if you want to get in touch with us and begin the initial discovery call. And that's all orchestrated by our prospects, by the people that want to speak to us. And it's really important. It's really important that you're not trying to drag someone kicking and screaming into a discovery call. Once that discovery call is completed, the system then compiles the research on the company and the person that's organised it, compiles the slide deck, compiles the proposal, and does a comparison between the information and data that was provided by the prospect who booked the call in the first place, and your costs. And that's delivered to the salesperson within minutes, really, of that meeting being booked. And that's where parts of AI come into it. So the level of engagement that you're able to achieve and the scale that you're able to achieve is absolutely unprecedented. And once that salesperson has completed that call, completed that meeting, not a call, so it would be like this. So once they've completed that meeting and confirmed the final cost, what happens is it appears, is processed on the telemetry, so you can see all of the statistics that it relates to, but more importantly this. Every single meeting, all of the information that you've got that relates to your exposure, emails, banners, meetings, videos, live streaming, everything that you have, all the visibility that you have says that's how many meetings you had, because the meetings are critical, and that's the change in terms of your pipeline at the end of that, whatever period of time date period you've put on there. And so we're moving from a this attempt at visibility, and attribution, which says we want to have as much information going out to a number of people as possible. But it's unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, it's rare that B2Bs are targeting their entire total addressable market. And in many cases, they're not aware of how low cost that can be. That's critical to understand. So because of that, you have to change this so that you can see what your market's doing. You know what their response is to what you're doing, and it's resulting in those meetings because they're able to get to know, like, and trust you. Live. I have to put live in the end. So it's something it's very important to, I would say, to think about, because the process has changed. You've got this analysis of absolutely everything, because if I go back to this, we've got the reach, live, and connect. The connect is where your prospects will organise their own discovery calls. We then move to ops, because ops is the telemetry. This is understanding what's happening, and that's constantly visible. And the way, for the technical out there, all of the data is harvested, you could say, and put onto BigQuery. And so because it's on BigQuery, you're able to analyse it, slice and dice it however you want, to see the reaction of your market and how they're engaging with you, that results in meetings and then obviously revenue. And finally, there's the hub. Now, the hub is where it becomes interesting in terms of the conversational interrogation of the business, not just by senior leadership, but also employees. So from onboarding to anything else, any question they have, ask the system and it will tell you where it is. And I think that's one of the very much one of the critical things about this, is that we are able to make a shift from the disparate systems that we had before. Because yes, we've got, whether you've got Salesforce and marketing, whether it's Marketo or HubSpot, Pardot, Eloqua, doesn't matter. There are lots of disparate systems, and it's not the systems that are important. It's the mechanics that deliver what it's supposed to deliver, which is revenue. And businesses have got caught up in this race for more and more SaaS, but it's not delivered anything. It's not delivered what it's required, and like I said, it democratizes sales and marketing. It actually brings them together. It makes them collaborators to generate revenue, because nobody's got the upper hand now. The system's doing the exposure. Who gets attribution? You, the CEO, because you chose to put it in, because this is happening it's automated. To get an understanding of the automation, did you know that you can put out 20 posts per day on LinkedIn? We know, we do. That's 600 posts a month. And that's why you're able to see how your market changes. So it's changed. Things have changed. I think that when you look at the infrastructure, and everything else, especially what I've talked about, there's a lot to process, and I know that. But in addition to what we talk about in terms of media, our media output and the live streams and videos that we do, we have a training course. And we've designed a training course specifically for go-to-market teams. And it's a retraining course, not a training course. So we know that you know lots of stuff, and we're not teaching anybody to suck eggs. But the way in which B2B marketing needs to be executed must be different, because the income and revenue says that every month, every quarter. You don't want this, could do better. It's not happening because it's misaligned, it's misdirected, it's not hitting the mark, and every single CEO knows it. And the salespeople are the ones that talk to other CEOs, and marketing people only ever speak to their boss. I have to think about that. So, like I said, we have a training course, and it's a. Let me just turn that off. We have a training course, and the process and so on is online, 30 hours. So it could be done in a week or done in a month. And the significantly important part of it is that we kind of recommend that not only are they required to understand the B2B process, because it's not just about B2C, but they'll get a certificate to confirm that they've completed it. So then they can fully understand the strategy, but also understand what this operating system will deliver and how it can impact a business. But the most important thing I say is that we recommend that one person on the board does it first, before anybody else. It's absolutely critical, I think. So you get this understanding before your staff. And I think that, it's all well and good someone saying, oh, we've got this new thing. We've got this new product. We've got this new methodology. And historically, it was just left to marketing. For the past 20 years plus, it's been left to marketing. And now we're saying that actually the CEO needs to know this inside out. And that's why we recommend that you do it first. So, but that really kind of brings today to a close. And I think that there are different stages. One is you can read some documentation that we have. Links are in the description. It's a 3-part GTM Reset series that we've produced. Just click on it. There's no forms, no nothing. And take a look at the site. And there's also a link. I'll put a link in the description to the A16 articles that I mentioned earlier, because I suppose when Silicon Valley are going down a path saying actually these things are changing, we don't need all these disparate SaaS platforms. We need an orchestration mechanism that functions in the way that a business needs it to function, not something that can be shoehorned into a business. And so I think that's the most important thing, that we're able to say that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and that the impact it has is very significant, because it's about generating increased revenue. It's about reducing costs. And I think the most critical thing is the ratios of profitability. And if you can readdress that in your favour and improve that ratio to profitability, it's never something just buy this now. It could be worth taking a look and investigating this further. And that's my message, just to investigate this further. I mean, I've done this for a long time. I know what was required, and we built it. And so the next phase and stage is, well, I'm saying that marketing have been getting it wrong for quite a long time. Your P&L bears that out. Probably. So that's it from me. get involved. Read about it, learn more about it, contact me, call me if you've got any questions, get in touch. Because I mean, even next week, it's about reducing the labour energy and not increasing the complexity. And what I'm going to do next week as well is I'm going to go through module 1 in a lot more detail. And so you can see how this fits together and how it works. So I'm not going to say do the whole lot in one show. I'm just going to do one at a time, and that kind of will make a bit more sense, and it'll flow a bit better and won't take too long. But anyway, that's all from me for today. Let me go back to this. Yes, that works. When I finish up, I'm going to reboot this again, and I'll be calm about it. But anyway, have a great week. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.
You have been listening to the GTM Reset podcast, the audio edition of the Sales Exchange live show. If this episode reflects what you are seeing in your own business, the next step is to explore the model properly. Use the links in the description to watch the full video version, work through the foundational documents, and request a private strategy call if you want to see how this would apply inside your organization. Thanks for listening.